For FPS fans, 2026 is shaping up to be an incredible year, with plenty of exciting games on the horizon. And in this video, I've put together a list of some of the most promising ones. If you're ready, let's get started. ExeKiller. ExeKiller drops you into a retro-futuristic Western set in an alternate post-apocalyptic timeline, where the world feels like it's already given up, and only the strongest survive in the ruins. You're thrown into a deserted, dust-covered city where every corner feels abandoned, but never truly safe. What makes this game stand out is how it blends a deep narrative with RPG-style progression and meaningful story choices, all wrapped inside a solid action FPS experience. The mix of a Western setting with cyberpunk visuals hits surprisingly hard, and seeing that fusion in a first-person shooter instantly made this a wishlist game for me. What about you? Does this world pull you in the same way? Hell Let Loose. Vietnam. If you're searching for a truly realistic war FPS, this might be one of the strongest contenders. Forget arcade movement. There's no sprinting around like a hero here, because the game is built entirely around authenticity. Massive 50v50 battles in the jungles of Vietnam turn every match into a tense tactical experience, where teamwork isn't optional, it's survival. The battlefield constantly shifts depending on player decisions, and every round feels completely different from the last. What really sells it is the sound design, distant gunfire echoing through the jungle, and sometimes complete silence after death that makes everything feel unsettlingly real. Warhammer 40,000, Boltgun 2. If you've ever wanted a gateway into the Warhammer universe, this might be it. Boltgun 2 mixes that classic retro FPS feel with modern gameplay intensity, making it both nostalgic and brutally fresh at the same time. You can jump into fast-paced action through two unique characters, each offering different abilities, weapons, and playstyles that change how you approach combat. Enemies are huge, chaotic, and overwhelming in the best way possible, while every shot feels heavy and impactful. Even if you're not familiar with Warhammer, this game looks like the kind of experience that could pull you deep into its universe without warning. Valor Mortis. Coming from the creators of Ghost Runner, Valor Mortis was basically an instant wishlist for me the moment I saw it. It's a first-person Souls-like FPS set in a dark Napoleonic-era world, where you literally return from death as a soldier, and that alone already sounds insane. Every death isn't just failure, it's part of your progression, making you stronger and unlocking new possibilities. Combat mixes firearms with supernatural abilities, creating a system that feels both tactical and aggressive. Set in the 19th century with a twisted historical vibe, it already looks like one of the most unique FPS projects in development right now.
This place wrong. This place not right.
You say that about every place.
With insistence. Wrong. Smell wrong. Smell bad.
Smells the same to me.
Animal Use Protocol. This one takes a very different direction, blending survival, horror, and FPS mechanics into something genuinely unsettling. You play as a chimpanzee named Pen, trying to survive inside a dark and abandoned research facility known as Anchorage Station. Scavenging resources, crafting tools, and exploring nightmarish lab corridors becomes your daily struggle. You're not alone either. You're leading other animals toward escape, while using strange tools like gravity manipulation devices and unstable companions like an aggressive rat ally. It sounds chaotic, weird, and honestly a little disturbing in the best way possible. If this game lands well, it could become one of the most original FPS survival experiences we've seen in years. Halo Campaign Evolved. Halo has always been one of those legendary FPS franchises, and Campaign Evolved looks like it's trying to bring that classic Master Chief story back in a much more cinematic and intense way. This is essentially a modern reimagining of Halo Combat Evolved, staying faithful to the original storyline while upgrading it for today's standards. So if you're expecting a completely new narrative, that's not really the point here. It's more about experiencing a familiar story with modern presentation. Weapon feedback looks heavier, combat feels smoother, and enemy AI seems noticeably improved. For players who love revisiting classic games in a refreshed form, this one feels like an easy win. Quite a ride. Honestly, this might be one of the most unique games in the entire list. Quite a Ride immediately caught my attention because it doesn't even try to be a traditional FPS. Instead, you're riding a bicycle through abandoned, mysterious roads that feel like they belong in another reality. It actually gives off strong Pacific Drive vibes, but instead of a car, your only way forward is pure movement and endurance on two wheels. Along the way, you investigate supernatural anomalies, recording them with your camera to understand what's really happening in this broken world. It feels strange, atmospheric, and oddly calming, but also unsettling at the same time. I already added this one to my wish list. What about you?
No laws, no oversight, just the jungle creeping back in, both the vines and the people.
No Law. No Law looks like it's building a deep cyber-noir open-world experience set in a city where order has completely collapsed. That alone already makes it one of my most anticipated games on this list, because I've always been into cyberpunk-style worlds, and this one feels like it's pushing that direction even further. You play as a former soldier who's done with war, only to get pulled into a lawless place called Port Desire, where survival depends on every decision you make. Choices actually matter here, shaping how the story unfolds and how characters react to you. Between alliances, betrayals, and constant tension, this world feels like it's always watching you. Gallipoli. If you've ever wanted to experience World War I through a modern FPS lens, Gallipoli is aiming exactly for that. The game focuses on one of the most chaotic and brutal fronts of the war, bringing you into trench warfare filled with authentic weapons, uniforms, and historically grounded sound design. It's very much inspired by the intensity of games like Battlefield 1, but it leans even more into realism and atmosphere. Every firefight feels slow, dangerous, and meaningful, where positioning and timing matter more than speed. I already added this one to my wish list because it feels like the kind of war game the industry has been missing for a while.
Hold limited value. Main research facilities are located further inland, behind the perimeter fence.
PUBG Black Budget. PUBG is stepping into a much darker and more tactical direction with Black Budget, and this time the focus is less on battle royale chaos and more on tension-driven extraction-style gameplay. Think of it like entering a high-risk zone, completing objectives, looting valuable gear, and trying to make it out alive, similar in structure to games like Tarkov. The maps are smaller compared to classic PUBG arenas, but that actually makes encounters much more intense and unpredictable. Every corner feels like a potential ambush, and every decision can decide whether you extract safely or lose everything. It's a much more grounded and stressful take on the PUBG universe, and honestly, it looks really promising. Looks like one of the most realistic and disturbing horror FPS games we've seen in a long time, and it's expected to release within a year. From what we've seen so far, it already feels like it could go down as one of the defining horror experiences of its generation. The game takes place inside a massive research fortress where everything feels wrong from the very first second you step in. What really stands out is the brutal level of realism. Enemies don't just fall, they break apart in a shockingly detailed way, making every encounter feel uncomfortably intense. It's the kind of game that doesn't just scare you, it stays with you after you stop playing. The real question is, would you actually play something like this?
Is Hunter.
As someone who has always loved the Metro series, I've been watching Metro 2039 since the very first trailer dropped. This time, it looks like we're stepping away from Artyom's story and into a completely new perspective, which already makes things more interesting. The atmosphere is insanely dense, dark, and oppressive, and the visual quality looks so realistic that you almost worry about how well our GPUs will handle it. Just like the earlier games, a huge part of the experience takes place inside the Metro tunnels, meaning claustrophobic spaces, limited visibility, and constant tension are back again. It feels familiar, but darker, heavier, and more mysterious in a way that instantly grabs your attention.
Starving dog, I kneel.
Defect. Defect is a SWAT-style FPS set in a dystopian world where artificial intelligence controls almost every system around you, and honestly, that concept alone is already enough to pull you in. What makes it even more interesting is that the game supports both single-player and multiplayer modes, meaning you can jump into intense 4v4 tactical matches or experience it solo depending on your style. The gameplay seems to focus heavily on coordination, positioning, and quick decision-making rather than pure run-and-gun action. It has that grounded, high-stakes tactical feeling that makes every encounter feel meaningful. If it delivers on its promise, this could easily become one of those underrated tactical FPS games people talk about later. Covenant looks like a dark and ambitious fantasy action-adventure FPS that immediately stands out just from its concept alone. The game takes place in a massive interconnected world, where you explore ruins of ancient civilizations and uncover legendary fighting styles, powerful spells, and lost weapons left behind by forgotten heroes. What really caught my attention is how combat is built around a fast, aggressive, and highly technical melee system. It's not just about swinging weapons, you're also using kicks, grapples, dodges, and fluid movement that feels almost like a martial arts system inside a fantasy world. It looks intense, skill-based, and honestly the kind of game you don't just play casually, you master it.